What's going on, troopers? In this video, I'm going to break down how you can lose fat in a sustainable way with my complete nutrition guide. It's going to be everything that I've learned over the last 6 years, working with 450 plus individuals, plus a number of other certifications and background, which I'll cover right here, just so you know that I'm not making this up. But this is going to be pretty much everything you need to know to lose fat in a sustainable way. So if you've had your weight go up and down for years, or you've tried fad diets, or you don't know why you're not seeing the progress you want, this is going to explain it. And this is based on everything that I've learned, like I said, as someone who has coached over 450 people one-on-one as a nutrition coach, personal trainer, spent well over six figures learning from different mentors, certifications, and learning from people who have done this at a really high level. I've also done this at a really high level. I've also done this myself. That's why I added in this little experience section. Like I said, 6 years coaching, ran a sub 3 hour marathon, lifted over 1,000 pounds in the main strength lifts. I've been a yoga instructor, Barry's boot camp instructor, 2 times Lululemon ambassador, D1 catcher at Washington State. So this is all stuff that I have done myself. This is stuff that I've learned. But more importantly, probably for you, this is all stuff that I have applied with hundreds of people. And if you want to hear them talk about what their experience is like, you can go over to the Fit Nerd Academy Testimonials YouTube channel and see 35, 40 plus case studies of people losing 15, 20, 30 pounds of fat pretty sustainably, and how people get to a point to where they're losing 50, 60, 70 for people that need to lose that. So it's all based on application. This is based on science. And so basically what you need to know first off and foremost for every single diet, it follows the same principle. Keto, carnivore, Whole30, you're losing weight because you are in a calorie deficit. So we're going to go over energy balance principles first. First thing, really simple. What is a calorie? It's not just some magic bead. I used to think it was like a little quinoa circle. It is technically defined as the amount of energy needed to raise the temperature of water 1 gram, raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree. So I like to start with this because if we can just take all the emotion out of it, calorie is just a unit of measurement, just like inches, just like feet. All right, let's make this as simple as possible. Calorie deficit, when you take in less energy than you expend, your weight is going to go down. So you can see here, if you're burning a little bit more each day, the cumulative amount is going to put you in a deficit, weight will go down. Calorie surplus, this is when you're eating in a slight surplus each day, or maybe just 1 or 2 days you're eating in a surplus, but the net intake is higher than what you expend. Calorie maintenance, so maybe your weight's fluctuating between 2 or 3 pounds and it hasn't moved in months. Well, you are finding energy balance. Energy you intake is equal to the energy you expend. Your weight will stay the same net at the end of the week. This right here is probably one of the most important slides that you will see in this video. Total daily energy expenditure is the combination of non-resting energy expenditure and resting energy expenditure. What this all means is that your body burns calories in a number of different ways. Eat is exercise. TEF is how much energy it takes down to break down your food. So thermic effect of food means it takes energy to break down and utilize energy, aka the food you're having. NEAT is non-exercise. So that's me moving my hands, that's me walking, that's me doing the laundry. That's everything that I do that's not exercise or me just laying on the couch and existing. And that's what BMR. That's your resting energy expenditure. It takes energy to keep the lights on. Your brain needs calories. Your liver needs calories. Your heart needs calories. Everything needs calories just to keep you alive. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions that people will make. They think they need to out exercise everything to burn calories, when the more efficient and effective way is to improve the overall health and efficiency of your system, which is going to be your BMR. It's going to move a little bit more. It's going to include walking, being more active, getting up from your desk. TEF, increasing your protein intake. That's going to help you increase the amount of energy that it takes to break down food. Protein's the one that takes the most energy to break down compared to carbs and fats. And then, yes, you want to exercise, but I would look at that more as a function of developing strength, developing good mobility, being able to use and express your body in ways that you would want to. And as you build muscle, that turns around, builds your BMR. This will also improve your hormonal profile. So there are 100% benefits, but you can't out-train a bad diet. So let's break down macronutrients really quickly. Protein, carbs, fat, and alcohol. Alcohol technically is a macronutrient, just in the sense that it has 7 calories per gram, protein 4, carbs 4, fats 9. Big thing I want you to take away from here is that if you were having a diet really high in fats, it's going to be twice as effective of at essentially increasing your calorie intake. So if all you're having is fats, that is going to make it so that it feels like you're not eating a lot, but the calorie intake is much higher. So if you're going on a hike or you're trying to gain weight, maybe you want more healthy fats, but protein and carbs are going to help you feel a little bit more satiated. The specific food quality obviously will make a big difference there, but that's going to be what you want to know from a calorie standpoint. So calories are at the top of the pyramid. Next level is going to be macronutrients. This is going to be a rough estimate as to where you would want to set these. This isn't taking into account a number of different factors, but if you took nothing else from this presentation, you're just like, give me rough numbers to start with, 0.7 to 1.2 grams of body weight for protein. If you're overweight, I would go more towards the 0.7. If you're leaner and you want to retain as much muscle as possible, you can go a little bit heavier or a little bit higher, or not even leaner, but if you just want to really make sure that you're retaining as much muscle as possible. Carbs are going to vary. I would say a lot of times you can just track calories and protein. Fats, you could try setting it 15 to 30%. And then depending on the person, you might go higher or lower, depending on adherence. We'll cover that a little bit later. But then carbs, you can set as the remainder. Probably would have carbs higher if you're training a lot, especially if it's high intensity training and you are spending a lot of energy. And then big thing is just test and track. I can't give you perfect numbers because you're one of 9 billion people on the planet. So it would be unreasonable for me to talk to you, not know how your body works, and give you specifics. You got to test, see what the data says, and then make adjustments from there. So this is actually a really helpful nutrition tracking document. I will put this down in the description for you to check out. I'm going to get my mug out of the way just so you can see some of the things that will really help you get clear on what's coming in, what's coming out. So on the left would be your nutrition phase. Let's say you're focusing on building muscle. That would be lean gains. Let's say you're cutting. That's losing fat. Training phase. Are you training for a marathon? Training to build muscle? Or are you training for strength? So you'd have that laid out there. Current dates would be here. Total calorie intake. You would track it in a Lose It or a MyFitnessPal. Put in your calories here, macros here. It's actually going to auto calculate it all for you. And it won't set the numbers, but it'll calculate the numbers and total them up. Then you'd put your water in here, any notes for the day, track your daily weight. You want to track your daily weight so that you can get a weekly average as opposed to just looking at random days in the week and making assessments off of that one data point. You want a number of data points to be able to find the average. Steps, that's going to be a big component of your non-resting energy expenditure. Sleep, that's going to be a big component of your BMR. This is a aura readiness score. This particular example, someone had an aura ring, they were tracking their recovery, but then you can also add in other elements to your activity, amount of steps, miles. So this is what a clean version of this looks like. This is what this specific one looks like, but you can also track things like your hunger, your digestion, your energy, and get really clear on what's working, what's not working. And then you've got data for that. So that's going to be down in the description. You can download that. It's a super helpful tool for you to use. So how to set your nutrition for sustainable fat loss. Let's look at how we would set everything, say from a calorie macro standpoint, if the goal is to lose fat. So what you want to do, and this is option one, track your weight intake for 14 days and see what happens. So this is where the average weigh-in comes in so helpful. If you see 165, 167, 165, but you only looked at that 167, well, you might look at a comparative date over here. Let's say this is a 165 right here, and you'll be like, oh, I don't need to make a change. But we want to look at cumulative calorie intake, cumulative body weight, find the average for the week, and then compare that to the next week. So then your weight maybe starts to go down. Maybe you decrease calories and you're like, okay, I was averaging 28, then I averaged 23. I was in a 1.1 pound deficit, or that's how much I lost. That would be a deficit. So reading your data, surplus, the weight's going to go up an average of 0.5 pounds over the course of 2 weeks. Maintenance is going to stay within 0.5. Deficit is going to be 0.5 pounds down. Another option, use a multiplier estimate to require your energy intake. So you look at your activity level times how much you're lifting. Most people, even myself, honestly, are probably in the light category. Moderate and high is going to be like a personal trainer, someone in construction, someone who's just super active all throughout the day, and then add on top of that lifting. So you do something like your weight times 1.3 to 1.6, 23 to 2,800 calories. That would be your maintenance. Then you would make your best guess off of that. And then again, you want to track your intake, track your daily weights. Always weigh yourself first thing in the morning after you go to the bathroom in as minimal clothing as possible. If you do it after you have a workout, after a Chipotle burrito, after you go for a run and sweat a bunch, it's not going to be apples to apples. Always first thing in the morning after you go to the bathroom, minimal clothing, and you're always going to get consistent reads that way. All right. Should you build or cut first? This is going to be an important one in case you were like, I don't know, should I lose weight or should I focus on building? This is going to give you general guidelines here. So if you're an experienced lifter, that's going to be the first two rows. That is greater or less than 16% body fat. So if you are greater than 16% body fat for males or females, you're going to cut. That would be a 3,500 calorie deficit for the week, roughly 500 calories a day. If you're an experienced lifter and you want to build, if you are below 16%, for male, 23% for female, you can build. Keep in mind, this will vary. Some people can build in a lower percentage of body fat. Some people need to be higher. This is all going to be dependent on the individual, what your biofeedback reads, and making sure that you're taking into account a number of different factors beyond just your body fat percentage. If you were to get your body fat done, the most accurate way to do that is a DEXA scan. That will give you a number of different measurements, markers, body fat percentage, how much muscle you have for different parts of your body. It is roughly 80, 90 bucks. But if you're doing that, you're going to get accurate readings compared to scales or in-body scans aren't going to be as accurate. So you'd want to go with that if you were going to be making decisions based off that. Experienced lifters within that 8 to 16%, you could also just go into maintenance, eat intuitively, train hard. Now, if you are obese, overweight, new to exercise, I would just start you at maintenance and then make adjustments from there because it's going to be something that is brand new to you. Target 0.8 pounds or 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. And then you walk, follow progressive overload training plan. That increase in activity will likely put you in a deficit. Again, you can obviously out eat a good training plan and good activity, but that's where I would start. Get your data, then make an assessment. And then if you were really kind of in that like skinny fat range, but you do have excess body fat, maybe around your torso, I would start maintenance, bring protein a little bit higher, follow a progressive training plan, walk, get your steps in, sleep really well, and then go from there and make adjustments based off what you're seeing. But that is what I would start with. Again, there's a lot of nuance here, a lot of context, but this is kind of a general guideline for you. So setting your macro targets. For your cut, again, this is a complete guide on building or losing fat rather. For your cut, you're going to want to set everything at 1.0 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. Fat, 15 to 25%. Carbohydrates would be the remaining. Now, if you were heavier, you've got a lot of fat on your body, bringing fat a little bit lower, totally fine. You might also do really well with high fat. You might need to go high fat because you need to go low carbs based off of being pre-diabetic or diabetic. So there are a number of factors here. Big one is have your protein at 1.1 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. If you are heavier, let's say 300 pounds, I might set your protein at target body weight. So let's say you're trying to get to 200. That could be a good place to start with. But typically 1 to 1.1 grams per pound of body weight is a great place to start, and then make adjustments from there based off of where you're at. Factors to consider. I got my favorite thing here when it comes to nutrition. Kenobi saying only the Sith deal in absolutes. The reason why I put that there is because a lot of diets want to have you believe that their way is the best way, that keto is the best way, the only way, carnivore is the best way, the only way, Whole30 is the best way, the only way. And for me, that reminds me of only the Sith deal in absolutes, because there are no best ways. If there was the best ultimate diet, every other diet would be irrelevant because this one would come out as the winner. Every single diet puts you in a calorie deficit and it has you focus on food quality. The methods or the parameters or the rules that it sets forces you by saying you can't have certain foods. In keto, you can't have carbs. In carnivore, you can't have a number of different things. In Whole30, you got to make sure you eliminate certain sugars. It's like they're basically saying you can't have this food. And if we put you on this track and this guardrail, you'll be successful. But you're successful, you lose fat because you're in a calorie deficit. So I like to think of these almost as like extreme religions. And in, one corner you have keto, and one corner you have, let me get my face out of the way. One corner you have keto, one corner you have Whole30, one corner you have Mediterranean, and then carnivore. In the center, that Venn diagram, they all agree on a lot of the same things. Protein, fruits and vegetables, calorie deficit, like to lose weight. Like they're applying the same principles. But what I have found with people is that you're going to take little bits and things from all these different strategies, intermittent fasting, and apply them to your life. But your life is going to come and go and ebb and flow in different seasons. The holidays is probably the worst time to try and do keto because you're trying to enjoy that pie with your family. And I think the really big thing that if you take, something else away from this video is that you got to find something that works for you, and what works for you will change. But if you go in with this mindset of this rigid system of absolutes, you're going to find yourself getting really frustrated because you can't adapt your life to a rigid system forever. And eventually you will fall off and you will feel like you're the one that messed up and made the mistake, but it was never set up for you to be successful to begin with because you were following a really extreme system. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. So factors to consider: your body weight. Like I said, if you're 300 pounds or 180 pounds, that's going to play a huge role in how much protein you should have. If you are someone who's new to lifting or someone who has been training for 20 years, your calorie intake will look different. Your meal timing is going to look different depending on when you're working out. When can you eat? Do you have kids? What time do the kids need to go to school? What time are you working out? When do you have the most energy to work out? Your gut health. This is a huge one. Some people can't handle dairy. Some people can't handle gluten. Some people have, a number of different conditions that make it really hard for them to absorb nutrients. Some people have acid reflux and low stomach acid. Some people have a completely different microbiome from the neighbor next to them. So them saying, let's say your neighbor or your coworker says, "Oh, I'm on this diet. You should do this diet." They have a completely different gut microbiome than you do. So they're going to handle certain foods differently than you do. They're going to respond to certain foods, and it's going to give them energy or less energy than you do. Myself personally, if I have dairy, I break out. I get really low energy. I get really gassy. Someone else can have dairy, no issues. That's individual. That's based on the individual. Adherence. Some people really struggle to keep fats low. They really struggle to keep carbs low. There's cultural elements at play, or maybe you're from a country where certain foods are just baked into the DNA of every single meal. And it wouldn't make sense for us to completely cut out something or to say, hey, keep this low, when that's like, hey, that's what we have every single day from a family standpoint. Preferred diet also. Sometimes things just are easier for you. This kind of tied to the adherence, but if you prefer to eat first thing in the morning and you get told, hey, this diet's best for you, don't eat in the morning, you're going to have a hard time being consistent with that. So you got to find stuff you enjoy and then just make sure that it aligns with the principles of nutrition: calories, macros, food quality. So if you're tracking this progress week to week, here's how you can kind of gauge if you're doing well and how you would gauge your progress. So if you're cutting, you want to see 0.5 to 1 pound of body weight loss per week, up to 1% of your body weight per week. Larger individuals, let's say you're 315 pounds, you could totally lose 1% of your body weight because you have more to lose. If you are 180 pounds trying to get to 175, that rate will slow down to maybe 0.5 per week. But the way you're going to measure this is weekly measurements, monthly photos, how clothes fit, performance, and look at that week over week, month over month, and see how you're doing. If you're building, you want to see 0.5 to 1 pound body weight gained per week. Again, you're looking at the same measurements. And if you're maintaining, you're going to look at the same things, but I would say a lot of times maintenance from a calorie standpoint, you're focused on other markers improving, not necessarily the scale. So you'd be focused on performance in the gym. You'd be focused on your gut health. You'd be focused on your sleep quality. You'd be focused on something that is either more longevity focused or performance focused, not worried about the aesthetics of how you look and how that is shifting. All right, now let's go into food quality, because everything I just covered, calories and macros, I would say are like the king. Food quality is the queen. And I say this because if you, depending on the country or the civilization, the queen is the most important or the king is the most important. You just had the Queen of England pass a year or so ago. She was the most important individual in England. First, you go to another country and it's the king. It's going to change based on the individual, based on the season. So they're both equally important. It just depends. And I'd say a good example of this is you could totally lose weight eating only Twinkies. They've had people do studies on this. They've lost weight eating only Twinkies. You're eating McDonald's every single day. But eventually, your body's going to be like, yo, we're not getting the nutrients we need. And that's where micronutrients become really important. That's for making sure that you are getting everything that your body needs at a cellular level. So that's where food quality comes in. So let's dive into food quality. Big thing here that you want to make sure you do is read nutrition labels. And this is kind of tied to calories and macros, but it gets into more micronutrients as well. So big ones you want to look out for. Serving size, that's going to dictate the measurement tool. Can't tell you how many times you'll see amount per serving, calories, 240, and it has 50 servings. And so someone thinks, oh, this whole thing is only 240 calories. I'm good. Look at the serving size. So that's 1 and 2 calories calculated by serving size. Total fat, you want to look at, the total fat, but then you want to see, does it have a lot of saturated fat, a lot of trans fat? I would try and avoid trans fat as much as possible. Total carbohydrates, don't fall for net carbs, as that's just going to be carbs minus fiber. So I would also, though, at the same time, look for fiber, because fiber is going to be something that really helps with digestion. It's going to help with blood sugar regulation. And, you could also look at sugars to that point and say, does this have a ton of sugar? Is it a bunch of added sugar? Then I would look at protein. You're going to see, okay, if you're looking for something that has something that is a high protein source, let's say you're looking for a protein snack, 10 calories, or for every 100 calories, you want to look for 10 grams of protein, 10-to-1 ratio. A lot of things will market themselves as high as protein. It'll end up being 400 calories, 10 grams of protein. If you were to hit even 100 grams of protein, you're going to have 4,000 calories, which is not a good ratio. You want to find things that are more protein dense if you're going for something that is high protein. And then obviously, as you are, going further down the line, you have different vitamins, minerals, but that is obviously going to be contingent. It's going to be based on what your body is needing, what you're getting from other pieces of your diet. So tracking food. So this is obviously everything I've covered has covered one big principle, which kind of burying the lead here, but tracking your food is going to be the most effective way at figuring out how much you should be having. And if you're not tracking, you're guessing. And I would say another part of this too, a lot of times people want to eat intuitively, but their intuition isn't attuned. And so let's say you are 50 pounds overweight, you're eating intuitively, your intuition has been telling you to eat more than you're expending. So I would say, and a lot of people would argue, that it is a helpful exercise to get more aligned with reality in the sense of tracking your food, figure out what is actually coming in, what is actually coming out. And then once you get that data, once you get that feedback, once you learn a little bit more about how much you are eating, what's in the food that you're having, then your intuition becomes more aligned, and then you can eat intuitively. But spending 4, 5, 6, 12 months tracking is going to help you understand what you eat and how much is in the foods that you have during different seasons of life, during the holidays, during vacation, during travel. And then you can go into the rest of your day having a little bit more of an understanding. Same thing as tracking or having a budget. If you just spend without any idea about what you're spending, it's very easy to overspend. I guarantee you right now, if I were to say, how many subscription services do you have to Peacock and Netflix and Disney Plus? You'd probably guess a certain amount. And then when we go and look at the credit card bill, it's probably higher. So we just want to do the same thing and be as accurate as possible so that we can make data-driven decisions, take a little bit of the emotion out of it. And then from there, you can make more educated guesses. First question or first obstacle people will say is, I don't know how to track, insert restaurant meal. So what I would do, number one, look at the menu ahead of time. A lot of times the menus will have the nutrition facts for meals on them, and then you can just plug it into a MyFitnessPal or lose it. You can order simple meals, something with 3 or 4 ingredients like tacos. So you would add, in this example here, you'd add a little tortilla, you'd add some chicken, you'd add some onion, a little bit of guacamole, it looks like, and then you're good. Do that times 5. Sauces on the side, if you're getting something like an enchilada, right, that's going to have a ton of sauce. There's no way of knowing how much is in there. So if you're getting a salad or something that is just baptized in sauce, just ask for it on the side so you can make a little bit more of an educated guess as to what is on there. Eating out at restaurants. So, quick little principle here: plan ahead. If you know where you're going to go, look it up, and then you can make the best educated guess as to what's going on. And I think there too, you have a better way to think about this is you're saying, all right, here's what I'm going to have. There's less in the moment decision or getting caught up and they're like, hey, order. And you're looking at the menu. Oh my gosh, I'll get what I've always gotten. And what you've always gotten is why you're where you're at. And so just going in with a plan is going to help you be a lot more successful. Simple meals, as I mentioned, the salmon fillet with asparagus versus the shrimp gumbo is going to be very different in terms of tracking. It's much easier to see, all right, these are the ingredients in here. Overestimate. Number 3, assume entrees are 1,000 calories, appetizers are 500, and drinks are 200. It's really easy for something to be 1,000 calories when you account for oils and butter and sauces, and that's before it even gets to the beef or the bun and everything else that gets added to the burger. So just overestimate. And yeah, if you go out to eat and you have a bunch of fries and you have a burger and you have a beer, you're probably looking at 1,700 calories. That's not weird. It can be much higher. And that, again, is why it's so easy for people to put on 20, 30 pounds. Like, oh my gosh, what happened? There are a lot of foods and a lot of restaurants and a lot of meal companies and a lot of just food in general. It's designed to taste really good. It's designed to make you come back. It's designed to make you eat more and more and more. They are not concerned about your health and fitness goals. So they're designed to make you eat a lot of it. That is why it's easy to overeat. So overestimate. And as I mentioned, skip the sauce, put yourself in the driver's seat there. Again, the chef's job is to make you love the food. They do that with things high in fat, high in sugar, high in salt. Your brain goes bing, 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 give me more. But if you pull that out, you put yourself in the driver's seat a little bit more. Objection number 2, it takes too long to track. Well, you can save common meals as recipes. So I have a Chipotle bowl. I know that it's got 7 ingredients in it. I make it once, and then I just swipe over 2 seconds. I do the same thing with a protein shake. And then track as you cook. That's going to be one that makes it a lot easier. If you put 6 ingredients in something, just put it in as you're cooking. And then finally, record yourself tracking a meal and compare it to your favorite app usage. So this is more of a perspective shift because tracking maybe takes 10 minutes in a day. Guarantee you you're on social media more than 10 minutes a day. So it doesn't take too long to track. It's just not something that you're used to doing. So it just feels like it takes that long. Not actually too long. Tracking isn't working. So first question I'd ask, are you tracking everything that you are eating? And then are your serving sizes accurate? There's a big difference between a cheeseburger and a cheeseburger. And what I mean by that is how many patties does it have? How many things of cheese does it have? How big is it? How many condiments are on it? So you could be saying, oh, I'm having a 200 calorie cheeseburger. But if we go and look at that cheeseburger, it's probably 600, 700, 800 calories. And so are your serving sizes accurate? You could be adding olive oil to a meal, or maybe meals being prepared for you, and there's 5 tablespoons of olive oil. If that's not accounted for, right, that's going to be 500, 600 calories that you're not accounting for there. I forget to track. 2 things that are really helpful here: pre-enter your food for the next day. So I know that I'm going to have probably a Clean Eats meal, which is a meal prep delivery service, and I know that I'm going to have a protein shake. I can put that in. Now I need to only think about snacks and dinner. And so I'm pretty much already done ahead of time. And then, as I mentioned earlier, track immediately after each meal or as you're eating it, as opposed to getting to the end of the night and being like, I wonder what I had each day. I'm just going to go off of memory, which obviously doesn't work. You've been going off of memory and that hasn't served you right. Basics of food nutrition. So, food groups. Lean proteins is going to be a source of protein that is low in saturated fat. There are a number of good options here, and you're going to have access to this deck as well. So you can kind of screenshot some of these. Then you've got starches. Starches are complex carbohydrates, complex carbs or polysaccharides, fiber, glycogen, starch are made up from 3 or more sugars bonded together. Big thing to take away from here: starches are going to take longer to digest because complex carbs have a more gradual increase in blood sugar compared to simple carbs. Simple carbs we'll get to in a second. Non-starchy vegetables are carbohydrates that are low in calories and do not cause your blood sugar to spike. So that's eating your greens. You can eat a ton of these, not see your blood sugar spike. Super helpful there. Dairy, vast category of products: animal cheese, milk, curd, ice cream. A lot of things taste really good when it comes to ice cream or dairy, rather, but there's ultimately part of what makes it taste good, the fat, the sugar. You can totally have healthy dairy, but something to keep into account there. Fruits come from a flowering plant or a plant that contains seeds. In contrast, vegetables are the edible parts of plants, such as leaves, stems, roots, and bulbs. So you can see this list over here. It looks like a bunch of really tasty fruits, and these are going to be typically things that are going to be a little bit more of simple sugars, carbs that are quickly absorbable into the bloodstream, whereas starches are going to take a little bit longer. Macro Venn diagram. I like to use this as a little bit of a cheat sheet because what it does is ultimately helps you understand what is a mix of protein and carbs, what is a mix of fat and carbs, what is a mix of protein and fat. So you can then say, okay, what do I need more of? I'll have this. And then you can make more educated decisions nutrition wise. Basics of meal structure. So anytime meal, here's how I like to think about it. You get your fruits and veggies here in the green. You've got fats here. You've got protein here. So this could be like your cheeses, your nuts. This would be your vegetables, your potatoes, your rice. And then this would be your protein. It's going to be a meal directly, or that is not directly after a workout. So a random meal in the day, not after working out. A meal after working out would be a lot more protein, veggies and fruit, starches. So it's going to be a lot of carbs. It's going to be a lot of protein. You want protein and carbs after workout meals, or in meals after working out, rather. Basics of nutrition structure. So this is just something that I've seen work really well for people. If you are wanting to eat 6 times a day, 5 times a day, 4 times a day, 3 times a day, 2 times a day, and a snack, big thing you got to look for is, all right, when does my energy decrease? When am I working out? When do I have time to eat? And so your training session should fall between 2 feeding windows, with pre-workout being 1 to 2 hours before, and primarily simple carbs that are fast absorbing. So if you're working out in the morning on this day, you would probably have breakfast after that meal. If you were working out on this 5 times a day, you could work out in this window. You could work out between lunch and a snack or breakfast. But basically, this is how you would structure everything. If you're only wanting to eat 3 times a day, you would have breakfast, basically skip lunch, have a pre-workout snack, work out, then go to dinner. If you were doing 2 times a day, so you're skipping breakfast, maybe you're intermittent fasting, you would do something similar, but instead of breakfast, you would move lunch up here. So really, you're basically just trying to figure out, all right, when am I going to be able to fuel myself and then have a recovery meal after? That's going to be an ideal time. And then you just structure your meal this way. Eating 6 times a day is typically going to be someone who's trying to get more calories in. Eating 4, 3, 2 times a day can be helpful in decreasing calories, mostly because you're just decreasing eating windows. Basics of nutrition, estimating portions. You screenshot this, you could save this from the deck. This is going to be kind of a general rule of thumb as to how much food is. If you got a fist here, that's going to be helpful in measuring a cup. A lot of times I'll look at meat portions as the size of a palm. And then, yeah, your thumb is not that big, but it is probably a tablespoon or a teaspoon of different fats. And then you can see other serving sizes here. Basics of nutrition, so protein sources. I am not going to read through all this, but one of the biggest questions I'll get is, Paul, what are good sources of protein? Well, here you go. Here are some great sources of protein. And they are broken out as plant-based grains, protein bars and powders, nuts, seeds, eggs, cured meats, dairy, deli canned meats, and then, as you can see, poultry, beef, pork, seafood. I'll share my personal shopping list in a second. Carb sources. So I mentioned complex carbs, then you have simple carbs. I'm not going to read all these, but complex carbs include starches and fiber that take longer for your body to break down, slowing the absorption of sugars, whereas simple carbs are quickly absorbed. So these are going to be things that quickly give you that burst of energy, but then you're going to have a little bit more of a crash. Whereas these, if you're focusing on having more of your diet be grains and beans and these fruits and vegetables, pantry staples, you're going to see a lower release of that sugar, and that's going to help you regulate your energy a lot more. Fats, unsaturated fats, saturated fats, trans fats. I'm not going to read through all of this here, But I think the big one to take away, trans fats created through a process of heating liquid vegetable oils through a process called hydrogenation. These foods found in fried food, small amounts of dairy and beef, and these are the worst types of fat for the heart and blood vessels because they increase LDL and lower good HDL. They create inflammation and contribute to insulin resistance. Not something that you want to have yourself dealing with. So be on the look for trans fats. That's why fried foods are something or some of the worst things that you can have. By all means, have them once in a while. But if you're having fried food every single day, you're asking for the dad bod empire to give you a visit. Um, Basics of nutrition gas station. So protein, fat, drinks, waters, carbs. Big thing here. Whether you're at a grocery store or a gas station, the recipe is the same. 0-calorie drinks and high protein snacks. Some of the other carbs and fat options can be helpful in rounding out an on-the-go snack. The big thing here is you want to minimize calories that you intake from processed foods. If you're grabbing food on the run, it's likely not a whole food. So the goal is to have the snacks provide some value, which is going to be hydration, hitting your protein target, and then giving you a little bit of energy in the form of carbs and fat snacks. So these are some good examples that I like to go through. But one quick thing that I would say here, just because you need to have something fast does not mean that fast food can't be healthy. You could have beef jerky, a fresh fruit cup, and water and a protein shake, and you've got 60 grams of protein there for $12. And that was fast food. You walk into the grocery store, you walk into the gas station, you have that in 2 seconds. So, like Core Power protein shake, a RX bar, and some trail mix could be a great fast food snack that you're having, or even a fast food meal. It's going to have less calories than your McDonald's. It's going to have more protein, and it's going to be the same amount from a cost standpoint. So, just because something's fast food doesn't mean it has to be bad. You can still have food quickly, but have it help you towards your goal. Um, Here's my shopping list, and I'll just kind of go through how I think about this. So, I want to have as many quick, easy to make protein options as possible. I don't necessarily meal prep, but what I do is I make these so that I can grab them throughout the week. So I will make ground chicken, ground turkey, ground beef, put that in Tupperware. And then if I'm having a little bit of like a power protein bowl, I'll put some rice, I'll put some vegetables in it and grab the protein from it. If I'm making an omelet, I might grab some deli cut ham and throw eggs and deli ham, boom, assemble that really quickly. 2 or 3 ingredients. If I'm making, or sometimes I'll use meal delivery service like a Clean Eats, but then I want to add more protein to it. And I've got 4 or 5 chicken breasts that I've made that I can put in. I can just grab one of those, cut it up really quickly, and add it to something. So I like to think about prepping my proteins and then adding it to these little 4 or 5 ingredient meals that I'm making that again are very quick, but I'm not making a full meal prep on Sunday for the rest of the week. Um, Dairy, I don't do as much dairy. This is more what my wife would get. But when I was doing a lot of dairy, I would get cottage cheese. I would get Fage 0% Greek yogurt, and these would be great snacks. I would add some fruit to it, or for the cottage cheese, this is going to sound crazy, but I would add tapatio to it. Unsweetened almond milk, great to add to your protein shake. Keep calories low, but still gives you kind of that milkshake texture. Almond butter, sometimes I would add to protein shakes. I use Koss Optimum Whey. Sometimes I'll get protein bars at the gas station if I'm on the run. And then from a grain standpoint, I got Dave's Killer Bread thin slice. So you can either get 140 calorie or 70 calorie bread slices. It's basically just a vessel to have your sandwich. So I go the thin slice, still get the bread texture, still get the bread taste, but it's half the calories. I like Bonza pasta or chickpea based pasta because that's going to make it really easy for me to up my fiber, up my protein, and be a little bit more satiated versus other regular pasta. Jasmine rice or Uncle Ben's rice, basically just something that I can throw in the freezer and very quickly prep rice and have that ready to go in 90 seconds. These are going to be great sources of protein and fiber as well, and things that I can throw in protein bowls or salads. So edamame, different beans. Fruits, I love fruit. I have fruit if I'm just needing a snack. I'll pop upstairs, grab myself handful of blueberries. I'll have a Honeycrisp apple, and that gives me plenty of sugar. I get that sugar fix almost instantly with a lot of those. Vegetables, I like to again throw these in different bowls. Spinach, I'll throw in my protein shake. And then oils and sauces. I try and keep the oils and sauces as low calorie as possible. So like the Tapatio, the Cholula, the Frank's Red Hot, the soy sauce, 5-10 calories per serving versus having ranch, ketchup, um, and barbecue sauce. All right, almost done. Got a couple more. So, improving digestion. So, this is going to be something that helps your body absorb nutrients, helps you go to the bathroom, helps get rid of stomach pain, go to the bathroom regularly. I mentioned that, but digestion is one of the most overlooked things. It is not normal to be having excessive gassiness or not be going to the restroom. You want to have regular bowel movements. That's a good sign of good gut health. So, first thing you got to do, slow down. And I catch myself doing this all the time because I grew up in a household of 4 kids. You don't need to eat like this is your last meal or that everyone's going to steal your food from you. And just being aware of that is one of the biggest things that you can do to make sure that you're not eating more than you actually want to. Take 10 seconds between your bite, chew your food thoroughly. That's going to help with digestion. Hydrate. I like this visual. You ever do a slip and slide when you were a kid? Nutrient absorption works in a similar way. Hydration helps process foods move waste through the body. So if you're super dehydrated, you can get super backed up. So make sure you're having at least half your body weight in ounces a day. Food quality, your body's going to be able to um, absorb food much easier if it is an actual food versus if it is a frankenfood designed in a lab and packaged in a box. And then relax. One of the best things you can do for digestion is to get your certain nervous system into a parasympathetic state. That's outside of the scope of this, but just think about parasympathetic is your rest and digest. Sympathetic is your fight or flight. So if you're constantly stressed, fight or flight, that is not a state your body wants to digest food in. Versus if you're relaxed, your body is much more likely to rest and digest. So relaxing, going for a walk after eating is one of the best ways to help yourself relax, help yourself digest food, and get regular from a digestive standpoint. Inflammation. Foods that cause inflammation, added sugars, too much sugar can lead to inflammation. And those are found in sneaky places: salad dressings, condiments, savory snack foods. Again, those companies don't care about your health goals. They want you to go through that entire tub of ketchup as quickly as possible. So they'll add sugars to it. Alcohol is a toxin that can cause damage at a cellular level for your tissues and organs. Consuming alcohol can trigger inflammation across the body, including the gut, liver, joint, face, and brain. Obviously, this is a huge topic. Not a huge topic, but like people will like dig their heels in on alcohol. I'm not here to tell you don't drink, but just be aware. There's a reason why they call it intoxicated. It is a toxin, and there's a lot of inflammation that happens when you are consuming a lot of alcohol or even just a little bit. Consider this: when you cut your wrist or some part on your arm, you pour hydrogen peroxide on it. You kill the bacteria with alcohol. So if you have good gut bacteria, or there is good bacteria in your gut, and you are pouring alcohol in it, you are basically eroding your gut lining and really making it a hard time for your gut to be healthy when you're always consuming alcohol. This could be a 3-hour video. You could just search stuff on YouTube to find out more about this. Andrew Huberman's podcast he did on this a few years ago is one of the best resources I've seen on it. But just educate yourself on alcohol, how it impacts your gut, how it increases inflammation, and then just make decisions based on, is this a hell yes moment, or am I sedating a feeling that I don't want to feel? Highly processed foods, I've talked about this a lot, but fast food and processed foods contain chemicals and compounds like artificial colors and flavorings and preservatives not actually found in food. So that's the frankenfood that I was talking about. So that's going to make it really hard for your body to handle it. A lot of that stuff gets into your bloodstream. That creates an issue for your from an inflammation standpoint, but now your immune system's having to fight it. And so the more you can just focus on healthy, whole foods, the better. And then trans fat, we talked about this a lot, but fast food and overly processed food are main source of trans food in our diet, which is associated with an increase in systemic inflammation. So if you want to reduce inflammation, fasting, that can help improve insulin sensitivity, partition nutrients, lower blood pressure. 12, 14, 16, or even 24-hour fasts can help there. Fermented foods, kefir, sourdough, bread, sauerkraut, and yogurt will help establish a healthy gut microbiota and strengthen the healthy gut brain. Strengthen the healthy gut brain. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be connection or access while reducing gut issues. Fish oil supplement. So omega 3s are going to be great at reducing inflammation if you're looking for supplementation. Those can also be found in salmon, walnuts, flax seeds, and chia seeds. And then dial in your sleep. Not only does it reduce inflammation, it improves fat oxidation, glucose metabolism, and proper appetite control. Sleep deprivation dysregulates or upregulates the appetite. And just a simple way to think about this, food is energy. If you don't sleep, you are low on energy, and your brain is really smart and knows how to get energy. So it's going to go to simple sugars, fast food, things that it knows will get it energy quick because it just cares about functioning. It doesn't care about your health and fitness goals long term. Why is this inflammation? So the more inflammation in the body, the harder it is for the immune system to work, heal, absorb, and process foreign substances in the body. Uh, isn't this handled? The body isn't designed to handle things in large doses. So the dosage is what makes the poison. All over social media, you're going to see people saying, "This is terrible for you. This is going to kill you." Yada yada yada. The dosage makes the poison. Whether that's alcohol, whether that's fast food, whether that is um, certain healthy foods can be too much. But the big thing to take away here is that when you have inflammation, now your body's got to work harder to deal with it. And so you can think of inflammation. If you get pricked by a plant, you're obviously going to get an increase in swelling, redness, warmth. A lot of times you see that in the gut, you see that in the face, you see that throughout the body. When someone pulls something out of their diet, maybe they're really allergic to dairy or really allergic to gluten, and they take time to really pull that out. And then all of a sudden you see them in a year. Same thing can happen, happens with alcohol all the time. You see them at later year and you're like, oh my gosh, you look younger. You look totally different. Yes, they lost some weight, but a lot of times they lost a lot of inflammation in their body. I know when I was in my mid 20s, 25, 26, 27, I was drinking a ton. I look back at photos. I look older than I do now. I'm 33. I look younger than I did at 24 because at 24, I was just raging and it was impacting my health in the sense that it was creating a lot of inflammation in my body, in my face. Once I pulled that out, I was able to see a big change in body composition, energy. Last few things I'll give you just on the mindset. These are going to be three quotes actually from my favorite Jedi Masters. So, your focus determines your reality. What do I mean by this? Well, if you are focused on what you have to give up in order to lose weight, then you're just going to be focused on, oh, I have to sacrifice. Oh, I got to get rid of. But I like to think of it as when you say no to something, you say yes to something else. So you're saying no to something you want in the short term to say yes to something you want in the long term. And so if you're focused on, oh man, I have to stop eating pizza every single day, or this is so hard, or this is the worst, and you're just negative and you're just focusing on all the negatives, you're going to find more negatives. And it's going to be really hard for you to stay consistent because you're tricking your mind and you're telling yourself a story that this isn't worth it. But I've never talked to someone who has lost 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 50 pounds, and they were just like, man, I'm so bummed. I wish I was heavier. I wish I had more back pain. I wish I was sleeping terrible. I wish I had less confidence. Like, no one ever says that. But if you just focus on everything you're losing and not focusing on everything you're gaining, that's going to be your reality. So remind yourself, focus on everything that you are getting, everything that you are going to be feeling, everything that you already feel. And that's where gratitude comes in as well. If you've lost 20 pounds, you're on the path to losing 50, and you're like, oh man, this is so hard. Focus on how far you've come. Focus on how much you've improved. And you're going to want to continue to do that because that's what you're focusing on. There's always a bigger fish. This one's huge. There's always someone who's lost more weight. There's always someone who's stronger. There's always someone who's leaner. There's always someone who's younger. There's always someone who looks X, Y, and Z different. Oh, well, you're never going to be better than every single person on the planet. But what's really hard is social media is just littered with extremes. It only shows the strongest people. It only shows the leanest people. It only shows the before and afters of someone losing 100 pounds. That's not that those people shouldn't be celebrated or that they haven't put in a hard work, but the social media algorithm rewards extremes. So if you get caught comparing yourself to the extremes in social media world or the extremes of what you believe you should be seeing, you're going to feel really down. You're going to be losing a lot of joy because comparison is the thief of joy. And ultimately, what I would tell you here is when in doubt, zoom out. And what I mean by that is you might get really hyper fixated on, oh man, I haven't lost as much as this person over the last 10 days or over the last 2 weeks. I'm failing. But then when you zoom out and look at your progress and you can say, oh, wow, in the last 6 months, I guess I am down 30 pounds, 4 pant sizes, and my wife is absolutely obsessed with me and my kids are having more fun playing with me. It's like, when in doubt, zoom out. Look at the big picture. Don't look at how far you have to go to your end goal. Look at how far you've come and use that as proof that you can get there if you just keep following the path that you have been going down. So there's always a bigger fish. There's always going to be someone who's further on their journey. And don't compare your chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 22. They might have started sooner. They might have had different circumstances. And then finally, you must unlearn what you have learned. Ultimately, health and fitness comes down to two things. It is the knowledge that you have. Are you operating with the correct knowledge? And what I mean by that is you might think, hey, I need to eat more calories to lose weight. That is incorrect knowledge. And so if you were doing that really consistently and you're like, why am I not losing weight? Well, you've been operating off of the wrong principles. But then there's also the mindset, the stories we tell ourselves, the beliefs we have around food, the values we have, what we believe is possible. And when I say you must unlearn what you have learned, often what holds us back is the stories we tell ourselves. And a lot of times it's the stories that come from society, from family. Biggest one that I see for people who might have been bigger growing up as a kid, or maybe their family's always been bigger, is they say, oh, it's in my genetics. I've always been a big kid. And what happens is, yes, genetics can be passed down 100%. But a lot of times it's the values and the habits and the beliefs around food that are passed down more so than the genetics. What I mean by that is if you grew up in a household where people ate unhealthy or they had negative relationships with food, or you were told you need to eat when there's food available, like that was a big one for me that I needed to unlearn. I had 4 kids, household of 6, played 3 sports. I was always trying to go from thing to thing to thing. And when food was available, I ate it as quickly as possible because I didn't know when my next meal was coming. I had to unlearn that. And so a lot of times you got to unlearn that carbs are not the devil. You got to unlearn that you can eat slower and that you don't need to eat your food as fast as possible. You can unlearn the stories that people have told you and saying that it's not possible, it's not worth it. You're going to be fat for the rest of your life. You are going to be, always just a POS lazy bum. And you ultimately got to break out of those stories and unlearn, stop telling yourself these stories and ask yourself, is this actually what I want from my life? Is this actually a thought that is mine? Or is this something that I've adopted and started to believe because, again, parents told me this, bad friends told me this, society told me this, I failed a couple times and I told me this. And you just got to change your mindset. You got to think, all right, what are the beliefs that I need to have in place? What is the identity I need to have in place? What are the values around nutrition that people who have climbed this mountain had? And how do I get similar values? I think that's maybe another good way to think about it. And if you can do that, your thoughts are based off of your beliefs and your values. What comes after your thoughts? Your words. What comes after your words? Your actions. What comes after your actions? Your habits. What comes after your habits? Your lifestyle, your identity, your future. But it all starts at the root with what you believe. And so you got to unlearn what you have learned. What you have learned is wrong. Whether that is, again, the principle, and you have learned that being in a calorie surplus is what you need to do to lose weight. Once you have the correct set of information, it's a belief and a mindset shift that you got to make. You got to unlearn what you have believed. You could, again, I could go in circles around this, but you could believe it's not worth it. It's always worth it to grow and to improve. It's never worth it to stay stuck and stay in pain. So, with that, believe that is everything for this presentation. I'm going to wrap it up. But if you want to follow a gamified process that I've created in Fit Nerd Academy, we'll commonly have people lose 20, 30 pounds in the first 16 weeks. Click this link here. It's going to be down below in the description. And it's going to be a gamified community of people who love everything in a galaxy far, far away. And everyone that I showed you at the beginning has gone through this system. And if you want help doing everything that I've just covered in this video, that's going to be the place to go. I'd love to talk to you about your goals, your challenges, and how we can best help you get there, defeat the dad bod empire, and help you unlock the hero inside of you. All right. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in a future video.